every single round of fighting, Iran comes out completely unscathed. No one ever exacts a price from Iran. And that's what has to end. And there's no way that Iran's responsibility for Middle East instability, for war, for violence is going to stop until the Iran regime is convinced that it will pay a price for doing so.
So should Israel be firing back at Iran?
That has been my long-held position, yes.
What would that look like?
I'll just give you one example. Every Hezbollah or Hamas rocket that crosses our border, an oil refinery on the Persian Gulf should go up in flame.
So you're talking about deliberately targeting oil supplies?
It is one of those targets in the target-rich environment of Iran.
Rishi Sunak has spoken to the Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu, saying that calm heads should prevail. This comes as Israel claimed to have killed a Hezbollah commander in an airstrike on Lebanon. Over 300 missiles were targeted at Israel by Iran this weekend. A coalition of countries meant that 99% of the strikes were thwarted. Israel has said they will respond, but are still weighing up what that looks like. Michael Oren is a former Israeli ambassador to the United States, and he's been telling me the killing of the Hezbollah commander is the beginning of the retaliation, but not the end of it.
It could be the start of it. It is not the entirety of it. Israel has been engaged with the war with Hezbollah since October 7th. Hezbollah joined with Hamas in attacking Israel. It has rendered the northern part of the country uninhabitable. About 80,000 Israelis have been rendered homeless by Hezbollah. And Hezbollah now for at least a month has outshot Hamas in terms of the number of rockets it's been firing. And so taking out the Hezbollah commander would be part of Israel's response to that war, but it is not the entirety of Israel's response to the onslaught of 350 projectiles fired by Iran at Israel last Saturday night.
I've been looking at a few interviews of yours over the past few days, and in one of them you say that we should change the rules of the game, and that for the last
Definitely.
15 to 20 years, the United States, Israel, you've been playing by Iranian rules. Just elaborate on that. What do you mean?
But Israel and the United States have been playing by Iranian rules. And the rules go like this. Iran shoots at us through its proxies, through Hezbollah, through Hamas, through Iranian militias, pro-Iranian militias in Syria and Iraq. They fire at us. They fired at American bases in Syria and Iraq and Jordan. They closed the Straits of Tiran through the Iranian-backed Houthi rebels. And what we do is we fire back at the proxies. We don't fire back at the country that sends and arms and funds the proxies. And as far as Israel is concerned, when we fire back at the proxies hide behind a civilian population, use them as a human shield, and we get branded as war criminals. But in every single round of fighting, Iran comes out completely unscathed. No one ever exacts a price from Iran. And that's what has to end. And there's no way that Iran's responsibility for Middle East instability, for war, for violence is going to stop until the Iran regime is convinced that it will pay a price for doing so.
So should Israel be firing back at Iran?
That has been my long-held position, yes.
What would that look like?
I'll just give you one example. Every Hezbollah or Hamas rocket that crosses our border, an oil refinery on the Persian Gulf should go up in flame.
So you're talking about deliberately targeting oil supplies?
It is one of those targets in the target-rich environment of Iran. I don't think that we should try to do what the Iranians do, which is to fire hundreds of rockets at Tehran, at a civilian population. This is what the Iranians do. We don't have to do that. We should never do that. But there are other ways in which we can exact a very painful price and establish deterrence.
You've talked about targeting Iranian oil refineries. The US Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen today has said that Washington expects to hit Iran with new sanctions in the coming days on oil exports. So a more diplomatic approach, would that be more sensible rather than using firepower to look at sanctions instead?
Well, if the United States is truly embarking on that. Now, since 2009, since the first week of the Obama administration, the United States has been striving to achieve rapprochement with Iran, not to confront Iran. And there was the Trump interregnum, where the relationship between the United States and Iran was confrontational. But that was reversed when President Biden came into office. And once again, the great thrust was to try to reconcile with Iran, not confront with Iran. If the Biden administration is willing to stop and make a 180-degree turn back to confrontation, it's an immense historic opportunity, because then it can align a large group of states in this region. It's Israel, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, the Gulf states, in an alliance against Iran. And if that economic pressure, that economic power is backed not by soft power, but by serious power, by the United States coming out and saying unequivocally that Iranian aggression in the region will be met by force or by local force backed by the United States, that would be very profound and I think transformative incident indeed.
So your call to the United States, you're former Israeli ambassador to the United States, but your call to Joe Biden and his administration is to support Israel further with firepower, something Joe Biden said that he won't be doing, but you feel that there's an opportunity the United States should be in step with Israel here in retaliation.
It's not just Israel. It's not just Israel. It's every single country that is threatened by Iran. And we are in large and good company in this region of countries that are threatened, many of us existentially, by Iran. And if the United States would step up and back us, we're not even asking the United States to make a lead on this, but to even provide us the tools to defend ourselves adequately against Iran, and Israel can use some additional tools. That would be transformative, and that would lead to a far more stable Middle East. And I think open new opportunities for resolving the Israeli-Palestinian conflict.
It does also threaten more vulnerability in the region. It threatens a bigger crisis, a humanitarian crisis, if this escalates, if this doesn't go how Israel would like it to go in targeted retaliation. It risks forced displacement, migration, disruption to global supply chains. How aware does Israel need to be of that?
My position would be just the opposite of that. If you do nothing, I guarantee you that the scenario you just described will happen.
There we go. That was Michael Oren, former Israeli ambassador to the United States, warning that inaction would lead to escalation in the Middle East and a threat to the West. Some interesting things to say there. Thinks that Israel should target oil refineries, Iranian oil refineries, that could be something of a more direct way of taking action than, for example, imposing sanctions or encouraging Western leaders to try and issue sanctions or words of caution over Iran's nuclear program.